Hello and a very good evening. Welcome to the Dareact conversation series powered by the Grey Matter. My name is Shreya, and on behalf of the Grey Matter team, I wish you all a very happy Ganesh Chaturthi. May we all be blessed with abundance of health, prosperity, joy, happiness and love. Well, this month on Dareact series is dedicated to Vahura and its team members as they celebrate their 10th anniversary. And to begin the celebrations, we have a first guest, Michael Ronald, joining us from Vahura. He is a managing associate at Vahura and Counselect, and he also heads their social media. So without any further delay, I'm going to invite Michael to join us live. Hello,
Hey, sure.
Michael. How are
Hey,
you
can you
doing? Welcome
hear
to
me?
Dareact.
I'm
Sorry?
doing well. Thank you so much. Can you see me, hear me, everything clear?
All perfect. Looks like
Great, great.
your phone data worked the best for
Yes,
this
yes.
session.
Ironically so, but I'm glad it did.
You did. Welcome to Dareact. We're super excited to have you with us
Thank
because
you
we
guys
know you
for
have an
inviting me.
incredible journey to share.
I
And
wouldn't say that. It's been fun.
absolutely. And I'm going to quickly begin with the first question, which is a very
Sure.
obvious one, which is why did you
Okay.
opt to study law after school?
Okay, all right. So one, it was sort of like a compromise. I ideally wanted to do things like history or political science, but I was informed by my parents that those are things that you do only to become a teacher, and that's about it. The usual angle was to become a doctor or an engineer, and no other professions were really very esteemed per se. So law, being a professional degree, had a little bit of credibility with my parents enough for them to say, okay, go do it. All right. The second aspect of it would be that so I read a lot of history, read a lot of political science. I love what the law symbolizes, system of rules for society to essentially govern itself. I also think it embodies what that society or that civilization stands for, and by reading that across civilizations and timelines and history as well, you kind of see how the law propels the development of the civilization. Just to give like a reference point, for example, there's a point in time in Rome where you could do anything to your slaves whatsoever, but because people litigated on their behalf, it soon became a crime for you to mistreat a slave, for example. And that happened within the span of like 80, 90 years. So what you could see was that the law kind of drove, entire civilizations and cultures forward. So I really respected that. So I thought, studying it would be fun. Plus, it had something to do with people, and I always preferred working with people than with like machines or something like that.
Fantastic. I think you had your share of pros and cons, and you weighed them out really well, and then figured out that you wanted to do law. That's nicely put. So you were in Chennai at that time, and then you had to move to Pune to study, law from Symbiosis Law School. Tell us, how was
Yeah.
that experience?
Oh, Symbiosis is amazing. Yeah, it's a brilliant place to be. Sort of very unforgettable in numerous ways. It was very cosmopolitan, so you met people from all across India. You actually rarely had classmates who were localites. Most of the people are from Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, Kolkata, so Hyderabad. So you kind of got to know a lot of different people, a lot of different cultures. For someone who came from Chennai, which is rather insular as a city, not too many, non-natives there. It was really fascinating to meet all people from all these different states of India, which I really read about until then. So that part was really great about Symbiosis. Pune is a beautiful city, really nice to live in, really happy, friendly people in general. The weather is nice as well. So yeah, it was a great experience overall. Like I liked what I studied, but more than that, I liked the people that I met, the experiences that I had. It was, diverse, things that I never thought that I would ever face in my life ended up happening in Pune at Symbiosis. So yeah, I really liked the time that I had there overall.
Tell us, in terms of internships, what all did you do, and did you take up any part-time jobs? Because I think that's a
Uh,
very common trend with students.
yeah, actually it was, and it was actually crucial in me not doing law at the end of it. So I only thought of practicing law from the point of litigation. I never wanted to be a corporate lawyer, never even had any interest in going in-house or anything like that. Felt litigation, also inspired by a lot of TV shows, thought it was really cool. Decided to like intern with a variety of lawyers, both criminal and civil. But I didn't enjoy the process, and I didn't really enjoy the lifestyle of the litigating lawyer. You're governed a lot by other people's timelines, the court's timelines, and so forth. Things take take place at a very different pace than what you want or what you expect. Okay, so also the general, it's under government machinery, right? I mean, that's what it is, the judiciary, right? And they have their own way of operating, essentially. I, by that time, had also started working like part time with event management companies, a few bars and clubs in Pune for promotional purposes. So I liked the space I experienced over there. Like over there, decisions were taken, it was done really fast, and it was fun work. You kept meeting new people. Essentially, when you say event management and promotion, it's essentially partying most of the time, right? So that was also why it was really fun. I started to pay more attention to that than litigating with lawyers. Uh, Also, working part time was a requirement because like our parents like didn't really indulge us with any sort of allowances. So if you wanted something extra, you want to go to Goa with your friends, you want to go to Mahabaleshwar with your friends, you had to pay for it yourself. You had to figure that out, right? So there are only two ways of really doing that when you were in college. One was by winning debates and Model United Nations and things like that. And I did that at times, but it wasn't regular. It wasn't something that always happened. And the second thing was getting a part-time job. So most of my initial forays into working in the event management agent industry was simply because of the fact that I needed money and I really wanted to, want to work to get that money. And college, the kind of burden college put on us wasn't too much. Like after 4 or 5 hours, you're done with class. So what do you do then, right?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's going to it'll tie up with the next question I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Post graduation, you moved to Mumbai and you began working as a manager with a talent management agency,
Sure. Yeah.
primarily catering to the entertainment industry. Now, tell us, one, how did you find out about this role? And second, what did your role entail?
Okay. Okay. How I got to know about this industry was that I started working, like I said, with event management companies, right? So you always had this portion of an event which was called artist management, which was just essentially managing the MC, the dancers, the singers, the Bollywood actor or the athlete who's showing up for the event, right? So I kind of started doing that a lot more when I was interning with these places. And at the same time, there were a couple of TV shows that came out showing what a talent agent does, a talent manager does. You had a show called Entourage, which was there. And looking at the job, I thought, hey, this is quite cool. It seems like, you'd be meeting a lot of people. You'd be in the thick of all action. You'd be crucial to things working out. So I got to know a little bit about it. Then I read a lot about it in India as to what the industry was like here. And then you only had like 3, 4 companies which did it. The rest of, let's say, Bollywood and entertainment had like an assistant or a secretary, but they didn't sign up with an agency per se, who had corporatized the whole firm or the whole business. So once I kind of got to know about the industry, I like the fact that there are 4, 5 companies that exist. I started applying to all of them, and then I got my breakthrough with one, which was like a startup, which essentially had like 2 clients, and there was like 2 agents. And so I went and joined as their assistant. Essentially, I was an assistant to 2 agents overall.
And what did
And
you do? What did you do?
oh, my
Yeah.
initial role. Okay, so my initial role for the first 6 months was essentially grunt work. Yeah, like I made bills, I delivered bills, I picked up checks, I deposited checks, I arranged conference rooms, I gave people drinks, I took minutes. I did things that you could do with a six, like after if you left school at 6 standard. Basically, that's essentially what I did. Okay, and that was for the first 6, 7 months. It wasn't like a 1 month or a 2 month thing. It's actually a part, like that's something I learned when I was in the industry. It's a formalized part of being a talent agent. They call it the mail room, where you are meant to do the most basic ground level work so that you have a lot of humility and you have zero pride about what you need to do to close something.
Interesting. And
And
I'm just curious. Yeah, sorry,
sure.
you were saying?
So after that, when I moved then to an agency called Quan, I then had a role as a proper agent. Now, as a proper agent, your role was possibly threefold. I would categorize it as such. One was getting like revenue generation. You called up people, you cold called event management companies, you cold called brand agencies, advertising companies, and you told them that about your talent, whether it's an actor, actress, singer, dancer, whichever. You try to get them campaigns for advertisements or catalog shoots or events, primarily events. That's where most entertainment artists make their money from. It's not from movies. It's predominantly from the corporate events that they do. So we work with a lot of corporates. So that job entailed, that part of the job entailed cold calling people, pitching your talent across, going for a meeting, following up with them to make sure they use your talent or employ your talent. And, that's a sales job. That was one aspect of it. The second was more from a marketing standpoint. You decided what kind, with your celebrity or your actor, you decided what kind of brand values they stand for. You try to get brands which match those brand values. You try to get movies that also enforce those brand values. For example, if an actor has image as a strong, tough guy, like action hero, you work with casting agents to find out about movies like that in the pipeline. You work with brands who are looking for such a character. So, for example, a thumbs up or a Monster energy drink. The ones that do want like a hero figure for it, for them as their emblem. So that was your second aspect, which was your marketing part. Your third part, you were Man Friday for them. Like they would call you for anything. Book my tickets, book my cab, pay my artist bills, like my makeup artist or my hairstylist. You took care of the entourage. If they traveled, you took care of all travel, hotel, food, lodging, and considering these are what do you say, actors or entertainment personalities, they're very particular about a lot of things, and which you have to take care of. If you don't take care of that, and it can go to the level of detail as one particular actor wanted only a specific brand of cold drink available for him at his hotel. Like there couldn't be anything else. Like if the hotel minibar had other drinks, you would have to get them removed because he is that specific about it. So you would actually have to see to their idiosyncrasies and peculiarities to the point of completion. And if you didn't do that, you're going to receive a diatribe from them.
Oh, that's that's very interesting. And I'm just curious, how did your family respond to you, choosing to take up a role like this post your 5 years of law? And also, how did you go about changing their mindset about the industry?
Okay. Yeah, they were really apprehensive in the beginning because entertainment in general has a sort of sordid lure to it. So their initial thought was if you're working in the entertainment industry, you must be like neck deep in like partying and drugs and, all sorts of issues. And the second was the role, which in their mind initially they conceived purely as you're an assistant to a celebrity. You're the one getting them water, you're the one getting them food, sort of thing. Like they looked at it like that. You're the one scheduling their dates and so forth. It took a while, I would say about a year and a half in, until I think my parents saw me. What I actually did at work was more on presentations than anything else, along with a lot of cold calls and travel for events and so forth. Where during the travel, yes, I do take care of all the minutiae detail, but at the same time, everyone kind of centers to you. The event manager like you're his best friend. The celebrity thinks you're their best friend. The brand also wants you on their side. So you're kind of crucial to the whole process. So when they saw that, it really helped out. Plus, there were certain other perks that came with the way. Like one case, I got an actor who was talent, who called up my sister once just randomly out of the blue, and she really liked him as an actor and as from an attractive standpoint, or like a point of attraction as well. So she was just really happy. She was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe an actor's calling me randomly." So there were things like this that kind of helped ease the way, sort of. But when they saw the work that I actually did, and when they saw me preparing for meetings with brands, with presentations, and they got the idea, okay, he's not somebody's assistant or like, spot boy.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Did your mother get a phone call too?
Sorry?
Did your mother get a phone call as well?
No, my mother once met an actress at the airport in Chennai as we were leaving, so she was happy about that.
Wonderful. Okay, considering that you moved to a completely unknown terrain, which is the entertainment industry, I'm sure you must have had your fair share of challenges as well. If you could share a few of those with us, and also what have been your biggest learnings from that experience of more than 3 years in the industry?
Okay. All right. So the first part of your question, which was what are the challenges, was first and foremost, it was a culture thing. Yeah, like everyone around me who worked in my company or who was my peer or colleague, they were really into Bollywood. They were immersed into Bollywood. They had seen They had seen all the movies as much as they could ever since they were children growing up. They knew all the details of movies from the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, and so forth. They knew exactly what was happening in the industry from terms of like trivia or gossip or whatever murmurings are going about development of projects and so forth. As in, they really loved being a part of it. All right. I didn't come from that background. Okay, I barely speak Hindi. I still barely speak Hindi. I had watched like maybe 10 Bollywood movies before I actually joined the industry per se. Like that's about it. So I didn't know a lot of your very basic facts: who the directors were, what their movies were, who the producers were, who the studios were, who were the key personnel in the studio. How does a movie work? How do you calculate sales, gross revenue, distribute? There's like a whole world for me to understand it as a business, right? And initially, I didn't know much about it. I didn't know anything about it, to be very honest. I was clueless, okay? The second thing was that was really crucial to your role because as an agent and a manager, you're expected to be first on hand with information. That's like most of your role. You should know what's happening, right? You should know what's going on in the industry, the undercurrents. So I didn't know any of this, and and when you're sitting alongside your peers and your colleagues, and they go, "Oh, this person he made XYZ movie. That movie grossed this much amount money. The music composer was him." You got very unnerved, and at those times, the like doubts would come to your mind. It would be like, "Hey, why don't you go back to a more familiar industry, or why don't you go back to a more corporate workspace which you're more comfortable with?" Bollywood was completely out of my comfort zone. Essentially, it was miles away from it. How did I get over that was I applied some of the things that I learned in law, which is that I thought law taught me to strategize my thinking, categorize and organize everything that you receive in front of you, view things from a 360 perspective, so to speak. Because as a lawyer, you're constantly wondering, if this happens, I should provide a clause for it. If that happens, I should provide a clause for it. You're kind of imagining all scenarios, right? So I used essentially that talent or like that predisposition towards organization and discipline. And what I did was I created Excel sheets of all Bollywood information that I could. I used to make Excel sheets of directors and the movies that they made, how much the movies grossed, who starred in those movies, who did the music for those movies, who was the cinematographer for those movies. And I did this for many people as I could. And every night for the first 1.5 years, I memorized them, I mugged them like I was studying for the 12th standard board exam. And because like, if one thing the education system does, right, it teaches us to mug and memorize, right? So I used that, and I just kept doing this every day so that the next day or the day after, in conversations, I'm not coming across as ignorant or unaware. So, like, for example, the next time my client said, okay, I got this movie offer from this director, I could tell her very clearly that, hey, his last 3 movies made only this much. I think you should rethink of this, relook at this, So that really helped out a lot. The second was the adaptability. The lesson that the industry taught me a lot was adaptability, because every personality is quirky and, idiosyncratic in their own way, and you kind of have to deal with all of them. And it's constant. Like you'll face problems you never thought you'll face before. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. It's a really small one, okay? But that will tell you how, like, even the smallest issues become like mountains over there, okay? A client had to travel to an event hall. The client asked for a particular brand of car, a standard of car, okay? So that is the talent, right? The corporate client did not have that car in that city because it was a smaller city. It was a tier 2 or tier 3 city. So the talent here now decides, I will not go to the event hall because I'm not going to go in the standard that I am used to / that I should be seen in. So she decided, okay, I'm not going to go for this event. So now I have the event manager screaming at me. I have my talent who's yelling at me for not having this car provided beforehand. Like, there's any possible way for me to actually do that, right? So you kind of have to figure out a solution at that point when you're the one getting harangued on all sides. So it taught me to think under pressure. It taught me how to adapt at that point in time. So while the client was complaining, the only thing that I could do, which was that I called up the cab service of a nearby town and told them, hey, drive here. I know it'll take you 3 hours, but get here with that car. We pay you XYZ amount of money. I told the client, delay your event by 1 hour, and we got it done in time. So, like, that was something which it did teach me, because you can't tell someone in that industry, I'll get back to you tomorrow. I'll figure this out once I have more information. everything is right then now, you know, and that was something that you just had to figure a way out around it.
Yeah, and I think when you, I mean, just by listening to what you've just shared, the industry kind of makes you shatter all your ego, make you
You have
extremely humble because there is no reason for you. And you know, especially when you've done 5 years of law, you'll be like, I'm not going to take this bullshit. You know, I'm a lawyer. But over there, it's
See,
like, why?
you kind of have to let that go. Like that's the thing. If you're starting out in a new industry, right? You got to play by the rules of that industry. You can't say, as a lawyer, I would have done this or not. You're no longer a lawyer in that role. You're doing something absolutely different. So you kind of have to go, like, to be a lawyer. What do you need to do? You need to go through 5 years of law school, then start working, right? To work in the entertainment industry, there's no qualification for it. I have people around me who were BCom, BA, BSc, BE. It doesn't matter what they did, but all of them went through this. If you want to be a casting director, you had to be an assistant casting director first for the first 5 years of your life, where you do very mundane work. If you want to be a director, you'd have to be an AD for at least 5 to 7 years, where again your first job would probably be moving stools and like placing lights at places, right? And most of these guys who come in to do this are educated, but you can't hold that back and saying, "Oh, I have this degree. I'm not going to like debase myself by doing this." The only question that keeps getting answered, that would get answered at these points, is, do you really want this or do you not? If you don't want it, there's always going to be an excuse for you to back out. And in an industry as vicious as Bollywood, there was an excuse every 30 minutes.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Michael. And also, I think one really interesting factor is that skills are kind of universal. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you learn a bunch of skills, I'm sure the industry must have made you extremely resilient as well, and which must have definitely helped in your career trajectory later on. And you know, saying that, I just want to ask that you eventually decided to step out and you know move away
Yeah.
from this field, and you started as a marketing consultant, working with companies in different industries. How did that happen? Number one, why the transition? And secondly, how did you narrow down on, you know, okay, marketing consulting is what I want to do? Like, how did you narrow down on that role?
All right. So, why did it happen, or why did I transition out of the entertainment industry? Is that in the long run, I never saw myself there. Like I said, like, you need that passion for that sort of industry, right? Like, all my colleagues and peers were people who wanted to make movies one day as producers or as heads of studio, or they wanted to market films or distribute films and so forth. They had a real love for Bollywood cinema. Okay. I liked it as a job. I didn't like it as an industry. As an industry, I was like, hey, this is fun. This is entertaining. This is certainly, challenging, but it's not something I envision myself doing for 20, 30 years. So, like, everyone around me had that goal of, I want to produce a movie in 20 years time, right? That wasn't on my list. So I didn't really envision or like envisage a long-term career here. I just thought of it as a job at that point of time. And the second part was that the industry in itself has its own undercurrents which are troubling and which are slightly unhealthy. So exposure to them over a long period of time, I could see it sort of impacting myself as a person, like the from your thought process to your perspectives of people and life. A lot of things start. A lot of these things depend on the environment you're around. So if you're around a certain type of person, right? You're going to start thinking like them eventually if you're only around a certain type of people. So when I saw that happening, I realized, okay, not really the thing for me. Plus, I don't really want to be a big shot or big wig in this industry anyway, right? So let me look at something else. So I quit. I took a brief time out, like for about a couple of months. I went back home. I chilled. I ate my mother's food. I went to the beaches of Chennai. A lot of classic contemplation happening there. And then I thought of, okay, what do I have as a professional of skill to offer what do I have to offer of value to a company or a client, right? Because I had written a lot, and again, I read a lot, so that helps out a lot as well. But when you're marketing, a lot of it is writing, putting across presentations or pamphlets or whichever it is, it's writing, right? And thankfully, I would consider myself talented in that aspect. So I basically started writing for, like, first initially few brands and startups which needed website content or needed pamphlet content. Like my first ever job was filling out a pamphlet for an upcoming restaurant, which they would then distribute around. Uh, so initially it was just about writing. It was, so I'd gotten like a little bit of work. Once I had that little bit of work, I used that body of work to sort of poach other clients or, like try to get other clients. And then that moved on to social media marketing because that was coming up back then. And again, if you look at Facebook, barring when you have your creatives and your design, you also have text alongside that. So you need someone to write that out as well. So I started then I continued in social media marketing where I provided content for posts. At the same time, I associated with other vendors, designers, other creative types. So then I got into app creation, and then from website content, it became website development because I then had a website developer on board. So it was essentially a group of freelance professionals per se working together. If I got the client, I would pick out the website guy who I think would fit the budget, or I'd pick out the app design guy who would fit the budget, and so forth. And I would head the team. I would be the client interaction. I did most of the sales. That was the essential part between me and a few friends who worked together. So I did the cold calls, a lot of the cold calls. And initially, like I said, when I was doing the cold calls, I was saying, hey, we offer content writing services, Then it became, we offer content writing and social media marketing. Then it just became, we offer digital marketing solutions. So you just kept changing that. And, as I got work, I kind of got more work. Like the first time I signed a hotel to a digital marketing contract on let's say social media marketing for a year. I used that contract, or I used the association there to then go and get 4 other similar hotels, just not in competing areas. But I just went to a hotel A and just went, hey, hotel B has signed with me, and I offer you services at a more discounted cost because I am, at the end of the day, a startup or a freelance professional. I'm not going to charge you what an actual advertising agency or a marketing agency will. So, why don't you give it a shot? So the initial bit was tough because you kind of have to get clients to believe in you when you don't have a company or you don't have backing or you don't have a team per se. So initially, I got over that by just doing a bunch of cold calls, like 30 calls a day, 40 calls a day, and until I got like enough people to say, okay, let's meet. And then once they met me or once they saw samples of my writing, the work got more easier after that.
Wow, it's a great learning actually. Everything that you did in your first job, it kind of helped you move ahead and kind of discover where your path was leading. Because even when you started as a writer, I'm sure you would have not thought that you'll end up saying that, okay, I have a digital marketing agency and these are the solutions we offer. It's so important that we keep taking each of these steps, one at a time, because a lot unfolds on the way.
There is constant learning as well, constant learning on the job, because again, when you're designing a website for the first time, you're going to face issues you never thought that you would, right? And then after that, you become a little bit more experienced and then you learn stuff about it. You understand how to design a website yourself, for example, right? You just constantly read up upon how to market your website. So then I could offer that same logic to my clients as well. So they're also going, oh man, this guy is really smart. He knows his stuff. Whereas I actually just read it like 30 minutes ago in the cab, but fine. And from there, you kind of I think I used the principle of Richard Branson at that point where he said, take the work, then figure out how to do it, So at times I did have clients who came up to me and asked me to do something. I had no clue what to do with, I had absolutely no idea. But I figured out people who did, or I read about it enough that I did. Reading has been the backbone, to be honest. Even when I joined Bollywood, when I didn't know anything about the industry, one of the first things that I did in the first 2-3 weeks of being in the industry was that I bought 10-12 books on it. And from 1920s up to 2010, it covered every area of Bollywood. So I understood after that how the industry developed and so forth. And I did the same thing when I became a marketing consultant. When I first started working with educational brands, I started learning about what kind of different Montessori schools are there and, what different programs and curriculums are there. I don't believe in any of them, but they're there and you have to understand them, right? And you have to understand them because then you're going to go and pitch to those clients. And similarly with hospitality, real estate, e-commerce, one of my favorite brands was a gardening portal, all right? And they used to supply, from your seeds to your tools and so forth. They're called ugao.com, okay? So when I first started working with them, I had no idea about gardening. I didn't know the difference between the types of fertilizer or manure or whatnot, or what each garden tool actually does. But I just went up, read about it, went and looked at similar websites in the United States and United Kingdom. And then I could come back to them saying, hey, this is how your website should be done. These are the kind of product descriptors, the main page content you should have. and they were very happy with it. So I actually found out it was primarily research, which is reading, and then how do you put that across, to your client?
Very relevant. Thank you so much for sharing that with the audience. So, post the stint as a marketing consultant, I understand you also had 3 ventures running simultaneously in Pune, one of which
Right.
was a social enterprise you founded, primarily being a delivery kitchen, providing meals, homemade cooked meals.
Yeah.
We would really love to hear about that initiative. Also,
Sure.
personal question, which I really want to ask is,
Sure.
how did you
Sure.
juggle your time between these 3 ventures? Like, what were you Superman or something at that time? Please throw some light on that as well.
So luckily, when you're running your own venture, you can do it from the comfort of wherever you'd like, right? So I did everything from my house. I converted one half of my house into a proper office and essentially worked out of there. So the first venture was the marketing consultancy, which I just told you about. So we had clients across hospitality, education, real estate predominantly, and a few e-commerce brands as well. The second was a digital magazine. It was called the Hippie Herald. We used to essentially publish content about social and cultural issues or rights, staying away from politics and religion, generally speaking. That was writing. That was just pure writing, which was again second nature to me. And also along with that, you got advertisements from people who wanted to feature their brand on the newspaper because the publication had over about 5 lakh subscribers overall. So we had an audience enough that people would then now come and tell us, okay, I'll pay you XYZ amount of money, mention my name in an article or mention my company's name in an article twice or thrice a month. So primarily hospitality brands again, okay? So you just put an article saying 10 places to go to in Pune, like on a Thursday night. There, mention 2 clients right over there. They're both happy, right? So your BuzzFeed type articles. So you did that a lot. Okay, so that was also kind of fun. So the social enterprise was called the Good Gobble. This came through research, a lot of research, right? I noticed that there's a certain vulnerable group in our country, especially our country. I mean, I'm sure it happens everywhere, but I'm looking at our country, who are prone or who are most, in danger of being domestically abused, which are women who don't have other jobs or who don't have financial freedom, essentially. Like if you don't have financial freedom, your thought process becomes, okay, I can't leave someone who's abusing me because where will I go? Where's the money for it? If you have kids, how will the kid eat? How will the kid go to school? And so forth, right? Like it's a very practical question. And
Yeah.
I preferred trying to answer that rather than going into the depths of why this horrible thing happens or why or what do these women need in terms of strength and so forth, right? Like that's a different thing, and there are much more qualified people to take care of that. Okay, my principle in life was you have more money, you have more choices. That's about it, right? And so my idea was that you guys and the only work that they got, these kind of women, and I'm talking about lower middle class women, yeah. So the only kind of work who are generally uneducated, who haven't gone to school beyond the sixth or seventh standard and so forth. The only kind of work they get is as domestic help, is as buys, is as janitors or custodians of various places. And this is something that's really awful when in our country, people who do those roles also get disparaged and belittled by people around them. If you are cleaning up after someone or a building, it isn't seen as something which is either honorable or of value in a way, right? Even though it is clearly of value and it's definitely honorable. But so they faced increased abuse because of the only option they had to make money also. And the way I found out about this was because it was my bai or my maid who used to come home, cook, clean, she would tell me about this. And I would ask her a very practical question. I was like, your husband sounds like a bum. Why don't you leave him? Right? And she would have a very honest answer. She would be like, hey, I don't have the money. Like, whatever I'm working for at your house, I'm working for another 5 houses, and I still don't have enough money. Right? And plus, also, that's a skill set that's declining with age. As you get older, you're going to get more tired. You're going to have to work on lesser houses. Right? It's not something that is what you'd say is expandable, or you can go to the next stage with it. So my notion was to kind of develop a skill set with them, which was something I thought they'd be good at, which was cooking, right? And cooking in a very homemade way, which then I could, let's say, put across on Zomato, Swiggy, our website to students and IT guys in Pune. And that's what we did. Those were our prime audiences. So even the way it was marketed, it was priced, was that for a student or a young IT professional. and we put it out there as, hey, this is homemade food. It's not like restaurant food. So we made limited amounts per day. We made what they were comfortable with. We trained them in new dishes as well. So I had a good team around me, including family members who helped do that also. So I'm terrible at cooking, FYI. So the entire idea was I handled the tech aspect of it and the customer service. I spoke to people who called in on from Zomato or Swiggy who placed orders, or irate customers who were angry that their order was late. There was something I realized in the food industry. If you want angry people, like, want to deal with angry people, food is the way to go. Okay. Because no one gets fed as someone who has been fed and who's not happy with what he or she has been fed. Okay. And they give you all sorts of stinkers and, like scathing reviews and so forth. So that was challenging in itself. And that's what the entire enterprise was, or the social enterprise was. How did I do it? I did not have much of a life, to be very honest. I woke up every morning at 5. My entire day was split between all three organizations or all three companies or ventures, which sort of limited how good I could be at each of them. So everything sort of progressed well, but nothing progressed spectacularly because of the fact that my attention was divided amongst the three. And I had friends, I had family who told me at that point very smartly, hey, close down one or two of them, like figure out which one you want to focus on and do that. However, since I was pulling it off until then, I thought I could continue to pull it off. So I ignored their advice and went on with trying to do three things. Eventually, a bit of a burnout did happen because, like I said, I was waking up at 5. Because you wake up at 5 to go get groceries fresh from like the fresh markets for the food that you're going to make that day. Then let's say between 8 to 11, I had to do my other marketing work. Between 11 and 3 was our order time. So that block of time, I'm completely jammed. I'm taking orders. I'm coordinating with my cooks. I'm coordinating with my delivery boy. I'm making deliveries as well. At times I made deliveries because my delivery guy is busy and I don't want another angry customer. So they are also much less likely to return. So you're harming your own your enterprise's success if you're late. So, and the buck stops with you, right? Like as the person in charge of everything as well. So I kind of put my foot into everything there. So I was in like a dozen places at once for like a good period of, I would say, 1.5 years, but it killed me. It literally did exhaust me after a point of time.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And I think the initiative would have been excellent had it continued for a little longer, how I wish it would have. And because there's a very honest thought behind it, which is,
right, but see, that I think that's a good basis to start something on, but it needs a lot more than that. Like it needs a team to flesh it out. One of the biggest disadvantages that I noticed that I had, or rather one of the biggest mistakes that I made, was that I didn't build a team around me to help handle all three businesses. I was trying to do all of it at the same time. And that in hindsight was an error. When I saw that later, I was like, okay, you should have like done this. But yeah, like good ideas require more than just a good idea. Like there's a lot of execution that goes with it.
Yeah, and a lot of helping hand as well. So that too. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so tell us, how was it for you? When it came to transitioning back to the legal industry after so many years, was it easy, or you had your own share of hiccups? Also, at Vahura, what are your roles and responsibilities? Because I understand you work on not just with Vahura, but you also work with Counselect. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So transitioning back, luckily I have been at a great company which has made it really easy. All right, like it let me take things at my own pace. It also let me figure out what exact value add I could add within the organization as well. Coming back to the legal industry wasn't so difficult from a social or career perspective because most of my friends and my network are still all lawyers. I still only hung out with all lawyers, right? Like I preferred that much more than, let's say, hanging out with people who spoke about Bollywood on their downtime. No, I've done this at work. I'm now done with work. Okay, so I don't want to discuss this stuff after. So it was, and my roommates, my flatmates, they're all like proper, tier 1 law firm lawyer type. So through them as well, I got to know a lot of people. So transitioning back from that aspect wasn't too difficult. The one thing that I did have like a startling epiphany on when I first came back into, let's say, the corporate world and the legal corporate world was that people are nicer and more patient here. Because I came from media earlier where people are not nice or patient, right? Like everyone's toxic in their own way. So when you came to the legal world and everyone's much more relaxed, measured, like I think that is the best way to kind of everything's done with prudence and thought, right? Whereas at my previous organization, my boss can easily come in yelling one day saying, "I'm going to fire all of you," and he would mean it, and we would all be terrified. But that was normal, okay? So like adjusting to this normality was initially a bit jarring, but yeah, I mean, obviously a pleasant transition, so I was really happy about it. So yeah, getting back to it was quite nice. Okay, what do I do at Vahura? So I have two roles here. One is as a search executive, uh, which is where I work with Counselect. Counselect is our vertical that provides secondment solutions to companies, where we assign lawyers on short-term projects. They could be 3 months, 5 months, 12 months, and so forth. For a company looking to solve a particular problem, like an expertise issue, or when they have an extended absence of one of their team members. Say somebody goes on maternity leave, right? How do they cover for that position while that professional's not there? You can't always hire somebody. So you need to sort of get in somebody who can start from the front foot from day one and take over that role for that particular period of time. So that's on the Counselect side of things. Thankfully, I've been allowed to retain my marketing knowledge and like passion for marketing. So I also head the social media team at Vahura as well. So I have a great team here, about 5 people, and they're incredible in what they do. So
Great, you have a team here. Something you picked up from your last experience and
it was one
decided
of the
to.
it was one of the reasons why I wanted to come back to the organized workplace. Like I was a little exhausted after working alone, and I also realized there are some things I'm just not good at. So I'd really like to delegate that to other people.
Brilliant. Okay, so my last question to you, Michael, is do you have any advice for law students who may not be sure about the practice of law? So
Sure,
what is
sure.
your suggestion in terms of how should they figure out their interest?
Okay. Uh, okay. I don't want to sound preachy here. All right. But I would say there are two things. One is let go of all your legal, perspectives, in the sense that don't expect to move into another field and expect to get paid like a lawyer would immediately. Don't move into another field and say, oh, if I was a lawyer, then I'd be doing like contracts or I'd be going to court, and compare it with what you're doing, because you're always going to start at the bottom if you go to another field, but don't let that scare you. Like, don't let that worry you, because you're going to have to do it. And you'd rather do that and wake up happy maybe a year or 2 years down the line than do something comfortable and be unhappy regularly, right? Like I knew a lot of people who did the lifestyle of having vacations regularly to just escape their regular life, because their regular life is not that much fun. It might be lucrative, but it's not that much fun. And that's literally, I think, the worst way to live life for me. So I'm saying, if you're one of those people as well, if you want to feel happy about coming into office every day and want to be happy doing something that you'd rather do, be it music or be it arts or be it an MBA or so forth, uh, don't let the thinking of the legal world kind of hold you back. Don't let that shackle you. That entire idea of, oh, I've done 5 years with one thing. Prudent thought process or regular thought process says I should now follow through on this degree and so forth. But let that go. It's okay. Sometimes being a little unorthodox also works, and it will definitely work in other industries as well. The second thing that I would say, and this is honestly the most crucial thing, accountability. Yeah? Like you gotta be okay being taking blame for everything that happens. Okay, you got to be okay saying, if I'm not getting something done, or I'm not getting hired, or my boss doesn't like me, or this industry is tough, you can't blame it on other people and other things. Your law degree, where you can't. For example, if you get into something like marketing and then you're terrible at your first year, right? You can't then turn around and think to yourself, oh, I wish I had done marketing. I mean, I wasted my time on law and so forth, right? There is a way to get good at marketing. Figure it out. Maybe read, maybe watch stuff, maybe listen to podcasts. I don't know, but content is immeasurably available nowadays, right? So stop finding excuses as to why it's not working out. If your boss is tough, deal with it, man. I'm sorry if you think that bosses everywhere are gonna like hug you and give you like cuddles when you come into office. Not gonna happen. You gotta just answer that question: how badly do I want this? And be accountable to yourself for it. If you're not doing well at work, don't blame your peers. Don't blame the company culture. Look at what you could do better. If you're not getting into a particular company, don't blame your previous company. Think about how you can make your CV better. I often get this call from, let's say, this happened a lot in the last year, right? With lawyers who were freshers and so forth, who were trying to get jobs, and then they couldn't get them because the last year was terrible for them. And some of them asked me very plaintively and very sadly that how do I improve my CV? I can't actually go out there and work, right? I'm not getting a job. How do I improve my CV so I do get hired? Here's a simple thought process. Do a research paper and write a publication, because what that shows, it shows your researching skills, it shows your drafting skills, which if you boil it down is basically what a lawyer does, or most lawyers do. So why don't you do that instead of just applying over and over and over again, right? When I initially was applying to advertising agencies, right, I didn't get much of a response because people saw my CV and they were like, dude, he's done a degree in law. How relevant is he for a very creative field like this, right? They're like, oh, he must have a misconception of what his role was. But what I did once after seeing this, responses were like really negative, is that once for a content writing position, I wrote my entire cover letter via a limerick. So just to show them, hey, guess what? I can creatively write. And it was taking a chance. It was like definitely doing something that was, not the usual. But it worked. They called me back and gave me an interview just based on that. And they were like, dude, we all laughed at your cover letter when it came in because it was really funnily put. Because you had put like lines about law and then not wanting to do it no more, and you'd rhymed about it and stuff like that. So it showed us that you could creatively write. So the lesson I think you should learn there, or at least that I took there from that one, and this happened right at the beginning of my career, was that there is always a way for me to get it done. It's just that I have to just figure out how. And I can do that by reading, watching stuff, YouTubing it, I don't know. But there is a way to do it. Put it on you to find out that way. Don't put it on anything else.
Yeah, so nicely put in such practical advice there, Michael. And especially when you spoke about personal responsibility, because, and it does happen that, you are put in a circumstance or in a situation where things are not in your control. But you do have a free will and choice to decide that whether you want to delve into the victimhood mode where you're, feeling sad about where you are, or would you rather try to figure things out and actually do what you really want to do. So I think free will kind of is something which each of us have, and figuring out things is human nature.
When you say like, a situation's out of your control, say the pandemic, right? That's out of your control. You have nothing to do within that, with that, right? But within that situation, there are things you can control. You can control the way you write your cover letter across or your CV across. There's no point doing the same thing day after day and getting rejections and feeling bad about it, right? To one candidate, I told her that don't send your CV, send just the paper that you have published, send that and show that you have an interest in that. And at the end of the mail, say, hey, if you like this, please have a look at my CV and consider me for a position. Because everyone would at that point of time be seeing resumes coming in saying, need a job, I would want to join your organization. You get their attention this way, a different way. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but you're never going to do it. You're never going to know until you do it. And there's no loss to it.
And also, I think it also shows how you utilize that time of 2020, 2021, which was the same for everyone, right? Exactly. And how you make the most of that time and kind of develop the skills that are actually needed on the job. So I think that's a fantastic advice that you shared. And on that note, it brings us to the end of the session. Thank you for this amazing conversation, Michael. And
nice to have this opportunity. I really nice to have this opportunity.
And we wish you all the very best, and congratulations to Vahura and your entire team as well, and have a fabulous weekend.
We're celebrating our 10-year anniversary soon, so that is pretty good. Thank you so much.
Have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Shreya. Bye.
Bye.